It's just over a year since we began the Phase 1 works at the stables at Wentworth Woodhouse. This huge and very derelict site has a key part to play in the regeneration of the Wentworth Woodhouse site as a whole. Over time, it will become a major income generator that will help to secure the financial sustainability of Wentworth Woodhouse for future generations. In part 1 of our November Stables update video, we're looking at the parts of the site that we've been working on recently that will ultimately be accessible to the public. All of these buildings have a specific role to play, which is very different to the role they were originally built for. The stables buildings at Wentworth Woodhouse are not strangers to changes of use. Originally built to house over 80 horses, the stables have constantly been adapted as their original purpose became less necessary. Mechanisation and the motor car meant that fewer horses were needed. A garage was built behind the original carriage houses in the early 20th century, and during the Second World War, the Army used the stables as a base to train motorcycle riders. The enormous riding school was adapted for use by the Army as a canteen, and after the war, the entire stable site was converted for educational use by the Lady Mabel College of Physical Education, with the riding school being converted again for use as a gymnasium. But from the mid-1980s, a long period of decline saw all of the buildings fall into a dangerous state of disrepair. Our Phase 1 works programme has halted this for a selected area of the stable site and prepared it for use in the 21st century. So much has changed since we first began the demolition works to remove the intrusive mid-20th century buildings that occupied what had originally been an open courtyard between the riding school and the carriage houses. These formed showers, toilets, changing rooms and a sports hall when the riding school was used as a gym. This area alone covers 915 square metres or 9,800 square feet, and future phases of work will landscape the courtyard for use as an outdoor event space. The scale of the stable site as a whole is difficult to gauge from the ground. It's only from the air that you get a true idea of just how vast the site is. The various courtyards and the buildings that surround them cover a staggering 9,900 square metres. That's about 107,000 square feet. When our architects began working on the designs for the master plan of the whole site, of which the Phase 1 works form a part, they were keen to play with the idea of scale from the visitor's point of view. The new access route from what will become the main visitor car park provides a beautiful first impression, with a silhouette of elegant Georgian buildings. The route leads into what's known as Mews Court, and this relatively small space, with a wonderfully cobbled floor, will give our visitors their first taste of things to come. From this courtyard, visitors will have a range of options of where to go next, as architect Rory Chisholm explains.
Right, so we're in Mews Court now. What are all these buildings actually going to be used for?
So, once people find their way into here, in the corner there you'll have your new coffee shop, where you can either take a coffee away or you can go and sit down in the main courtyard.
Yeah.
Behind you, in this fantastic Mews Cottage building, there'll be a new shop, which will be something people can exit through on the way out or have a look at on the way in. Through the big arch over there is the route to the main stables courtyard, which will then take you into the gardens, if you're going to the gardens, or down to the mansion. Through the smaller archway there, you can see Ostler's house, which in the future will be accommodation. So most of the public will find their way through the big arch towards the garden. Some people might go down towards accommodation if that's what they're here for.
The archway from Mews Court into the main stables courtyard takes the visitor through a passageway that only gives a hint of the grandeur on the other side. But once inside the stables courtyard, the enormity of the site starts to become apparent. It's a big reveal moment into an open area that's roughly the same as half of a full-scale football pitch.
So as visitors come from the Mews courtyard into the bigger stables courtyard, they'll firstly be able to see the much bigger scale of the stables than they maybe first realised. But what we're doing for them is that this building over here will be a future cafe. So they can come round, go through this historic original door from the 1780s into the new huge cafe space, which will be for my money, one of the sort of crown jewels in this project.
I was just looking as you were talking. I remember going up to see these cornice stones being cut.
Yes.
So they're brand new stone.
Yeah.
But they just look incredibly as though they've been there forever.
Yeah.
It's really blended in well.
Yeah, they're blended in well, but you can really see the crisp detail. that
Yes,
they've managed to
definitely.
achieve.
Yeah.
And it reminds me, I think one of my favourite projects is also stonework, because you can see down here the hand-tooled stone here. The thing, I mean, one of the good things about it is that it matches quite closely what all of this wall would have looked like originally.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that, as it was back in the 1700s, as it is now, we asked the masons to just take a tool, do some tooling of their own style, and so you can, a bit like handwriting, see which mason did which stone, and they can always come back and see that themselves.
And there's dozens of examples of it everywhere around the courtyard.
All around, wherever there's a repair on the wall, we've done one of these.
Really good. Shall I go inside?
Let's go.
Yeah.
You have to.
Thank you.
The area that will become our new stables cafe was once used for stabling horses, as were the ground floor spaces on 3 sides of the stables courtyard. In the mid-20th century, this space was converted into classrooms. Part of it was used as a science laboratory, and part was used as a music room.
It's huge, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really generous space. It's going to be a real feature of the whole project, I think. So this will be our new cafe space. People will come in from the courtyard and sit here. And then they can have the choice, I suppose, to stay here inside this beautiful room, or they can sit out in the stables courtyard again and sit in the sun. And from here you can really read the quality of detail, even in some of the back of house spaces. So the stone threshold over to the corner there, even though that was an internal doorway, it looks like an external grand door because of the quality of the stonework. So it's one of the special things about this space.
What got me when I first came in here was the fact that you've got 6 lovely windows and they all match, but only 3 of them are original to the building and the other 3 are 20th century additions.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's works here in the 1920s and the 1960s, all of which blend in really well, which is not always the case when you have works, especially in the 60s.
Yeah.
So it's very impressive. I think one of my favourite things from a technical point of view in here is the roof works. So not only have we done in here what we've done everywhere, which is put a new warm roof on with insulation, so massively improved the thermal efficiency, but the structural interventions where we had a lot of rotten timber on the trusses, those structural interventions are substantial and they last for years, but they've been careful enough to keep as much existing timber as possible. So I think they're quite subtle considering the big changes we've had to make.
Brilliant.
And this is the point at which we cross over into the section of the stables that will be used by our staff and volunteers. In part 2 of our November update video, we'll take you round these newly created spaces to give you a feel of how they'll be used and how they fit into the wider master plan for the stables. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like our videos and leave a comment. We love to hear from you. And if you have any suggestions about videos you'd like us to make about Wentworth Woodhouse, leave them in the comments section and we'll see what we can do.